Alright, so this lesson is about circumference of circles. So again, we talked about this in my class, so hopefully this is a review for you. So circumference, you have two formulas. You have pi times the diameter, or you have 2 pi times the radius. So you can use either one of those formulas. So if you know the radius, use the 2 pi r formula. If you know your diameter, just use the diameter one, which is just pi times the diameter. So when we're talking about circumference of a circle, we're talking about the outside of the circle. So the area that is outside of the circle. So let's just do an example. If you have the diameter of a circle is 5 meters, what would the circumference be? So just look at your two formulas. You have pi d and you have 2 pi r. So since you know the diameter, you just want to do pi times the diameter. Use that formula. So if your diameter is 5, you just do circumference. Since you use pi d, that's the formula you're going to use. So circumference will equal, since your diameter is 5, it would be 5 pi, and it'd be meters. Since your diameter is 5 meters, you have to keep it in meters. So get down here so y'all can see it. Circumference is 5 pi meters. 5 pi meters is your answer. Because there you just do pi times the diameter. Diameter is 5, so it's just 5 pi meters. So let's do another example. Say you have a radius, you know what your radius is. Say your radius is 7 centimeters. So your radius is 7 centimeters. So you want to use the one formula, 2 pi r, since you know your radius. You do not know your diameter, but you know your radius. So your circumference equals 2 pi r. Since your radius is 7, sub that into r. So you have circumference equals 2 pi times 7. So what you have to do is you have to simplify that. So to simplify it, you just have to do 2 times 7. Let's do 2 times 7. So 2 times 7 is 14. So that means your circumference is 14 pi centimeters. That is your answer. 14 pi centimeters. Now, with circumference, you don't use squared units. You just use plain. You don't put an exponent there. It's just 14 pi centimeters. Now let me do an example. Since y'all should have watched the area video before this one. If you haven't, watch it. Let's say your radius, or not your radius, I'm sorry. Say your area of a circle. Say area of a circle is 9 inches squared. So let's say you have an area of a circle and it's 9 inches squared. And you want to know what the circumference is just from knowing this. So what you have to do first is find out what the radius is. You have to know what the radius is because to get the area, you have to find your radius and then square it. So, I just about fell there. Alright, so you have 9 inches squared as your area. Your formula for area, remember, is pi r squared. So you have area equals pi r squared. So you know your area is 9. It's 9 inches. So sub in 9 for the area. And that leaves you with pi r squared. So that leaves you with pi r squared. So what you have to do is you have to know, your area isn't. Let me go over that again. say your area, it's not 9 inches squared, but 9 pi inches squared. Sorry about that. So you have 9 pi inches squared. So your formula is area equals pi r squared. So you know your area is 9 pi inches squared. So you got 9 pi equals pi r squared. So you have 9 pi equals pi r squared. So you know that you have to know what r is. Pi has value to it, but the radius, you have to know what the radius equals. So what you have to do, since the radius is squared, you have to find the square root to cancel that. To get this exponent of 2 out, you have to find the square root. So that means you don't find the square root of 9 pi, just find the square root of 9. So if you find the square root of this here, that cancels out. And then what is the square root of 9? Well, square root of 9, that is just something squared will equal 9. So like 1 squared equals 1, so that's not true. 2 squared is 2 times 2, that equals 4. That is not true. But square root of 9 is actually 3, because if you square 3, you get 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. So that means that 3 would be your radius. 3 would be your radius. So now that you know your radius, you can use that to find your circumference. So the circumference formula you should use, since you know your radius, should be 2 pi r. So if you have 2 pi r, that's your circumference. Circumference equals 2 pi r. All you have to do is sub in the 3 for r. So circumference equals 2 pi times 3. And then you just have to multiply the 2 and the 3 together. So 2 times 3 is 6. So your circumference is 6 pi in inches. 6 pi inches. That is your circumference. If you have any, I know those are a little bit more difficult. I remember doing those in class and they're a little more challenging. So if you have any questions on those, please let me know. Like I said, I'll have this video up for circumference, and I have another one up for area. And I'm going to post some other videos online too. But if you need any help, please feel free to ask me.